after an entire year away from our screens, the MCU makes its big comeback with its first major TV show, WandaVision. When it was announced years ago, a sitcom/psychological thriller starring two characters that didn't have much screen time together across these films, it no doubt raised a few eyebrows. But I immediately saw the potential, and it easily became my most excited show in the Disney Plus slate. Now that I finally saw it from beginning to end, was it worth the hype? Well, for lack of a better term, hell yeah it did! WandaVision is the most experimental, risk-taking, and unique Marvel project to date, and almost every twist, turn, and loop it puts the audience through turned out to be an absolute success. The show follows Wanda Maximoff and Vision living out the perfect suburban life across multiple perfectly replicated eras of American sitcoms. As this happens though, Vision begins to accept that something is wrong. And we all know this. Vision is dead, and the MCU clearly doesn't always look like this. It's all because this sitcom world is all being controlled by Wanda, who is trying to escape her grief and pretend this is her new home. Yet we all know this reality can't last. And it's all put together like a delicious cake with 3 layers. The first layer, the sitcom elements that are masterfully replicated. When it is just Wanda and Vision performing the usual comedy acts you would find in these kind of shows, every little detail is painstakingly crafted to match the era. From the wacky shenanigans, music, characterization, and even the commercial breaks in between, it's all a gleeful and hilarious blast from the past and a true labor of love for the early days of TV. Director Matt Shakman said he got advice from Dick Van Dyke to make this as faithful as possible, and it clearly shows. Even so, the sitcom elements aren't just there to be cute. Rather, it's symbolic, as it reflects Wanda undergoing the 5 stages of grief, specifically denial. It is the ideal reality where whatever problems that exist are mere inconveniences, everyone is nice to each other, and, no giant purple men looking to tear your husband's head apart. This leads into the second layer of the cake, when reality starts to close in on Wanda and we get to see what is essentially going on when those sitcom cameras are off, looking into what Wanda and Vision are really thinking. How does Wanda view everything she's done? Does she even understand it all? Why is she doing this? It provides a deep dive into a broken woman struggling to accept that the person she loves is gone, in a world where she already lost everything. She lost her mom, her dad, her brother, her home, her own life. She had to watch Vision die twice, one of which she was the one that had to kill him. That will absolutely traumatize someone, and the show spares no expense in making that clear, either explicitly or symbolically. All of which wouldn't be nearly as effective though if it weren't for the amazing acting chops of Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. Not only are they funny together, not only do they match the era together, not only is their chemistry to die for, but they're allowed to express more emotion, nuance, and realism than any of the movies beforehand. This perfect blend of them running the gambit easily turns them into some of the best actors in the MCU, because everything they say feels believable, sincere, and from the heart. And for the final layer, watching The Facade is the agency's sword, with returning characters Monica Rambeau, Jimmy Woo, and Darcy Lewis working together to find a way to free the city of Westview from Wanda's magic. While nowhere near as complex and unique as what is going on inside of Wanda's reality, they still provide a solid breather to catch the audience up on what happened since Endgame and the effects Wanda is having on the real world. Not to mention the fact that the characters in Sword are trying to figure out what is going on the same way audiences are, trying to piece together the mystery as to what has brought Wanda to these extremes, providing a meta and somewhat interactive layer to the story. All of these elements weave together like a fine quilt to tell not just a story about grief, but a story about moving on, a story about not letting your pain control you but using it to become someone better. It is about the dualities of life, love and loss, joy and sorrow, life and death, reality and fiction, denial and acceptance, 2 different extremes, just like the genres in the show. And it is told with barely any action scenes at all. It proves that Marvel could do more than just epic CGI fights. It's more than that. In fact, the action in this show is probably the most boring part. This show is entirely about character. Dialogue over fisticuffs, emotion over epics. It is style and substance perfectly balanced, as all things should be. I don't care if the main villain is really lame, or the finale nowhere being as good as the rest of the series, because WandaVision still tells the most thematically poignant, character-driven, and emotionally rich story in the MCU since probably Guardians of the Galaxy. So naturally, you can bet it deserves a
smoking sexy style!
Even if you don't like Marvel, this show is well worth your time. It may be a slow burn, but you will not regret you saw it. And if this is a sign of Marvel movies yet to come, well, we're in for a wild ride.